we need to understand that we are really depleting the creative energy of our children by not providing the arts. If they don't, now I also understand the artist spirit though. Young people who want to be artists are going to figure it out, right? And that's the wonderful energy about an artist. I'm going to have to figure this out. But maybe another forum is to have young people come in and tell us. Right. You know, here I am, years after college, being a career person, and I'm saying what the young people need, but maybe they need to tell me, this is what I would like to see.
You know, I think, and again, I'm looking at this strictly as an outsider, but, you know, one of the things that has always puzzled me, you've got the city, mm-hmm. and then you've got LBUSD and LBCC and CSULB, but they're like sort of like their own little institutions, right. Or some people might say their own little worlds, right. And trying to, how does the Arts Council, particularly with LBUSD, there's a relationship, but what else can we do so that there's a little bit more coordination, dialogue? I'm not sure, because I'm sorry, I've been at meetings where the LBCC people come and LBUSD people come and say, well, everything is just fine. Mm-hmm. We're doing this, and this, and this, and I'm sure they are, but no, we know that. Mm-hmm. Budget cuts and so what else can we do more, or is this enough? And I'm not sure it is enough. So but
well,
Arts for LA is a good example where yes. For years they were trying to get them to adopt the arts education curriculum, and well, I don't know where it is now, but they resisted. LBUSD resisted that. Mm-hmm. So. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying is,
Well, I think you're right that there hasn't been an opportunity or a moment here in Long Beach where we advocate for arts education like Arts LA did. I believe that there was a group
right.
here that was related to Arts LA that was like a subcommittee in the Long Beach area, and that no longer is part, and so maybe I actually was at an event last week with the Creative Economist Report, and I ran into some people from Arts LA. And so maybe it's about talking to that again. Because again, I am not going to be able to do, and the staff, to think about this arts education thing. Right. But I do know the people there. I do know that there was a committee here before, and maybe it's connecting that.
And there's actually a group now that went and took the training.
Okay.
And so, in fact, I just met with a couple of them recently. So one of the things I will do is put you in touch with them. Okay. But I just think that that's a dialogue that we need to reinvigorate and there's nothing wrong with using resources from other places and friends from other places to make this happen.
Yeah, another great model that I would love to see how it could be correlated with the arts is even building healthy communities and how yes. they do work groups, right? And so that's a wonderful model. Yes. And so then why not have one where parents or families or anyone learns about arts advocacy within their schools? Right. And that's the work we do as advocacy and facilitator. We can't house it, but we can help build the bridge.
Exactly. And you must have been reading through my paper, because that's my next to last question has to do with community engagement. It's being a theme in many of the studies that I spoke about before earlier. And we just recently, we being just a couple of us, met with some folks from Building Healthy Communities to talk about the role of the arts in around community issues, advocacy issues. So, like for instance, work with with organizations that deal with environmental justice, restorative justice, affordable housing. I mean, arts has a long history of being a part of movements as both an expression of that movement as well as being an educational tool. And it was interesting because I don't ever really hear you guys talking about that stuff. So we actually had a conversation about that, and they're saying you're right. We should figure out a way where we're working much more closely. So what we argued was that the arts should be an important part of these movements. So what's your take on that perspective? And obviously you have one. And what can the Arts Council do to build relationships with those groups here, like building healthy communities, about all the organizations that revolve around that group?
Well, there's one image that has always stuck with me when I think of this issue, and there's so many others, but I think of the janitor strike, and there's been several janitor strikes, but we're looking at the one in Mississippi, Dr. King and the organizers there, and the I Am a Man poster. That we now see that image in so many other places, I Am a Man, but that one graphic at that point in time for a Black man to hold it in protest is quite powerful. And there's been so many others. There was a great poster for the janitor strike here in LA in like 94 or something, right? And the May Day posters and even murals that were sometimes brought in LA for the immigrant march. So art is a major part of this. But not every artist is interested. So we have to identify artists that are interested in this kind of work. I think it's important work, but we need to also connect community organizations with those artists that think are important work. And I think something that will work here very easily is if more artists that are interested in restorative justice and more community organizations that are interested in learn about our granting process. There are micro grants every month that may assist with this, right? And this is not necessarily that we would be funding political work, but we would be funding an artistic expression of what's going on in the neighborhoods. And we are going to have more workshops on these in the coming spring of how to apply for our grants and what are the guidelines and what can be funded and what cannot be funded. But if an organization can come together to have an arts workshop about an issue and collaborate with the local artist, and that falls within our guidelines of our micro grant, why not?
Yeah, I would love to put you together with a couple of folks, people who were involved with the Arts LA training in this conversation with building healthy communities, because I think that's everything from all these issues dealing with affordable housing and environmental justice and the $15 wage and wage theft and there's just a whole group of people out there doing some really interesting things, and not just visual artists, but I think it comes up in spoken word. When I go to the open mic at Homeland Cultural Center, there's some powerful stuff going on over there. So I think it's important that we have that conversation.
And it's also happening within art therapy as well. A few months ago, we approved a micro grant to have art therapy as part of restoring health for elders in central Long Beach that are dealing with Alzheimer's. Right. That is also restorative health, and it's art therapy, and that's something that was approved. And it could be scary for folks if someone see our guidelines. We're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all this work, but we're here to help. Right. We want to explain it, and if we have more and more people in dialogue, and thank you, we need to connect. It will help the Arts Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last question. In the past 10 years, there's been now, I think, 5 or 6 Arts Council executive directors. These are the ones I can remember. No pressure. What's going to make you different?
I would say that maybe what makes me most different, and I'm going to stand in this, absolutely, stand in my power in this. 10 years ago, a lot of people may not have seen me as a leader within this arts organization, and there's many reasons why. But the fact that I'm here, I think, is a big statement. It's a big statement from the Arts Council, and it's a big statement of recognizing that advocacy isn't so, if you know, one of the things I heard when I was applying to this is advocacy. And if you look at my experience when the board saw my CV, they saw advocacy in so many different ranges across the board. The arts, labor, food advocacy, business. It was the range. And what I heard them say and what I told them in my interview, I'm an advocate and I connect people. And we have a new strategic plan that's been revamped. And advocacy is going to be a major part of it. And we can't no longer be afraid of that word within the Arts Council. We really have to engage with it and be it. Be like, let's do it. Let's connect the artists. I don't know if the other executive directors, I know Victoria very well. I know John Glaza. I think that would be my range. And those years with them were major transitions. Victoria and I have talked a lot about advocacy and our vision of that and her vision and how I can move that forward. I don't know if the other ones saw advocacy the way I see it. If we see the different layers, if we see the different folks, if we see all the components, then I think we have a very good chance of really turning it towards advocacy and making sure that artists and residents and city and business have this wonderful cultural life here in Long Beach.
Yeah, because, for a very long time, advocacy was once a year we're going to go visit the city council offices to convince them to increase the funding for the arts. And what I've always said is that's, important, but if you don't convince everybody else, if you don't have 10,000 people behind you at the city council meetings and writing letters or sending emails or posting stuff, you have to advocate to people to be your advocate.
Absolutely.
And I think that was, and that changed. I mean, that you could see where that became a bigger part of the strategy. That, you know what, it's not enough to just send a couple of people down to City Hall, meet with the city council members. No, we need to go out to the community and have them go down to City Hall and meet with the people. And I think that's been a big shift, a very positive that's happened over the last 10 years.
I think so too. Yes. And I think we also now need to be able, and this goes back to arts education, right? This idea that everyone should be an advocate for the Arts Council. Residents in any language here in Long Beach should be able to talk about us because maybe they have a nephew or a grandson or a friend or a neighbor that, is an artist and expresses himself through any of the forms. We have so many different kinds of forms of art. And they should be like, you know what? In whatever language, go here, and we'll figure it out. And I think we're moving towards that. It took a lot of work, but I think I'm the kind of person that acknowledges all the work that people put in these last few years, and can lead us to putting this into action. I don't know if that makes me different, but I know that it makes me, acknowledging the past and knowing where even I came from in this journey makes me strong.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I want to thank you for your honesty. I want to thank your openness. And trust me, I hope this is the beginning of a long discussion with not just me, but with a lot of other folks. And I would love to work with you to make that happen, because I think it's an important dialogue that needs to move forward. So thank you again for joining us on Radio Palacio, and hopefully this will not be the last time we speak.
De nada, Antonio, anytime.